You're listening to Comic Reflections, episode 152. I'm your host, Nicholas Prom.
And I'm Spencer Valdez.
Comic Reflections is brought to you by Rhymes with Geek. You can find this show, plus many other cool podcasts like the all-new Anti-Fanboy, Feed It Comics, and Super Podcasto Magnifico at rhymeswithgeek.com. Comic Reflections is also available at backissueheroes.com, the home of classic comics on the web. And if you enjoy our show, please subscribe to us on either iTunes or Stitcher.
You can do all those things.
Yes. So today, Spencer, we are going to wrap up Volume 1 of Showcase Presents Green Lantern.
Yeah.
And, yes, I think we're going to try and do this without a break. Get it all in one. So, the first issue we're talking about is Green Lantern number 14. It's 1962. And the lead story is called The Man Who Conquered Sound, written by John Broome, penciled by Gil Kane, and inked by Joe Giella.
Yep.
And this is a story that introduces another one of Green Lantern's classic foes, Sonar.
Yeah, the villain with the supersonic punch.
Yeah.
So you want to just hop right in?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Superman is flying back from...
Superman. Green Lantern.
Green Lantern. Sorry about that.
Where did Superman come from?
I have no idea.
Krypton?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so...
Green Lantern is flying back from outer space.
Right.
He patrols, apparently.
Sure.
You know.
Or he had a mission.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And on his way back, he's flying over Europe, and he realizes Pieface is a huge dork and collects stamps.
Like 100-year-old man.
Yeah.
I wonder if he collects coins, too, like as a side hobby.
Yeah.
Another, like...
It's not as serious, but, you know.
But I put those hobbies together as, like, why?
Yeah.
You know? Why? You know, so...
Yeah. So he's flying over Eastern European country, and he's like, I'll stop here. Kind of lands, and it's a city that's kind of tucked away, a country, actually, that's kind of
called Medora, and it's the only country in the world that Pieface doesn't have a stamp from.
Right.
And Green Lantern learns they don't even mail letters there. That's why there are no stamps. Because it's so... They make it... It seems Eastern European, but also like a weird blend of like rural Italy or Spain.
Yeah.
So it's just like foreigners, like a weird analogy.
I guess they're not foreigners.
It's it's a weird analogy of Europe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he lands, and he just immediately starts blasting people in the face with his power ring.
Reading their minds.
And he's trying to communicate with them, and I guess that's okay, but they don't know him.
Right.
They from reading, it doesn't seem like they realize who Green Lantern is.
Right.
And so he just lands, he's in a funny costume,
right.
And then he starts, like, blasting people in the face so he can communicate with them. It's not very polite, Green Lantern.
No.
But then, he's kind of going around town, reading people's minds, and he comes across this...
the clockmaker.
Yeah. And he's worried about his assistant taking off, and,
yeah, what's the assistant's...
Like reading his notes.
The assistant's name is Bito Vladon.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah. The clockmaker's worried, and then Green Lantern does this weird, like, shoots his power beam at the notes, and it, like, dictates the notes to him.
Into his mind, right?
Into his mind, yeah. It's super kind of weird.
Yeah. So he learns all about Bito and his experiments with sound weapons, and he wants to use them to, like, put Medora on the map.
Yeah.
Because it's a super tiny country, and nobody ever hears about him.
Right. And so he's dealing with, I think it's called nucleosonic energy.
Yes.
And with it, he's able to defy gravity, and he
can use sound to knock over stuff.
Yeah, there's like a pile of bricks being blown up, kind of.
Yeah.
And he has a special, like, he's determined to make it to America so he can get the necessary parts to build a nucleosonic bomb.
Right.
To like really establish Medora as a country.
Right. And then he thinks he's going to rule the world from Medora.
Yeah.
But that's later.
he basically wants to make Medora into Iran.
I
is what I'm
guess.
reading.
Okay. So he goes. He makes a costume for himself, and it looks like an 18th century aristocrat kind of, or a 19th century aristocrat kind of costume.
Yeah.
You know, he looks. It's basically like a New York City doorman with a cape.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so by the time the Green Lantern comes back to America, there's already stories in the newspaper about this this guy that they're calling
Sonar.
Sonar.
Yeah.
Because he comes in, messes with sound.
Yeah.
And he's stealing all these parts, and he's getting closer and closer to building up his weapon.
Yeah.
And Green Lantern comes in, and he sees Sonar with some parts in his hand, and Sonar just wallops him.
Yeah.
Knocks out Green Lantern, and in a way to protect himself, the ring kind of does its own thing and puts a protective shield around him.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. I mean, it's kind of a good backup plan. You know, if you get knocked out, you're still protected and can get up later. And the typical villain, Sonar, is reading about himself in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And all they can talk about is the United States and Russia.
Yeah, and how groovy they are.
Right.
And nothing about Medora. Mm-hmm. And so that pisses him off, and he's going to go after Green Lantern again.
Right. And so he has this new gun that he's going to try out. It's
the tuning fork gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It messes with brain waves and things.
Right.
And so
when he's going out to steal something, and Green Lantern shows up, and he uses the tuning fork gun on him, and then everything seems yellow to Green Lantern. So he's like, powers are failing. Here I had an issue.
Okay.
How does Sonar know that you can't affect anything yellow?
Right. I think the effect of the gun was just in the mind of Green Lantern. And so the worst possible situation of Green Lantern is everything turns yellow.
So Sonar didn't necessarily calculating haha, this is going to make him think everything is yellow.
Right, hopefully.
Okay, because it's a big gap. I'm like, he's from Medora. He certainly didn't know who Green Lantern was. He's not going to really know anything about him.
Right.
So, certainly not that. Because I don't think people really know that, except for Sinestro.
Yeah.
As far as villains are concerned.
Exactly.
And the Guardians.
That's right.
Yeah.
But they know because they dealt with him and they're friends with Sinestro.
Yeah, they're regular pals.
My question was,
okay,
why can't Hal fly? So everything's kind of turned yellow.
Because the air seemed yellow too. Therefore, he can't...
But wouldn't he be just affecting himself rather than the air around him to fly?
He's flying through the air with the power of the ring, and if the air is all yellow, then the flight would be nullified, at least in his mind, because it's about his concentration of willpower. That's why his powers fail.
Right. And so he has a pretty safe landing.
Right.
And then he realizes, why is everything yellow? And so he does a little mind trick on himself.
Yeah.
He clears his mind.
Yeah. So he's like, oh, it was an illusion, so I'm good to go. Then he goes out and fights. He tracks down Sonar over the ocean and creates a big, whirlwind or water spout in the water. And he basically
holds him, gives him a swirly, and is going to let him up until he's kind of about to die.
Yeah. But that's how he beats Sonar, and then Sonar goes directly to jail.
Yeah.
But he's happy because he's put his country on the map.
Right.
Now people know that that's a place, and so he's happy about going to prison.
Yeah.
Not for long.
So I'm pretty sure that Broom was just, commenting on the foreign policy of.
Well, yeah, and it's like let's be sure to make sure the creepy foreigner gets his ass handed to him.
Yeah.
It is the Cold War.
Yeah.
But then the citizens of Medora are happy because he captured Green Lantern captured Beto. And so they made a postage stamp for him to give Pie Face.
Yeah.
Which is funny.
Ridiculous. Dork.
Yeah. So the backup story in this issue is called My Brother Green Lantern.
Yeah.
And this was written by John Broom, penciled by Gil Kane, and inked by Joe Giella. And this is continuing that story arc about Hal's brother being mistaken for Green Lantern by that chick.
Right.
I was thinking that was going to be a one-off, because, really?
Yeah.
But no, this is an ongoing arc. This goes on for a while, so...
So, kind of starts the story with Pie-Face, and Green Lantern is telling him, or Hal's telling him, sorry.
Hal's meeting up with his brothers, and they're going to go to a fraternity, like, get-together. Like, obviously they're different ages, but they were all in the same college fraternity throughout whatever.
Right. And so they go on a hunting trip. They go, it's basically a way to get them out of the house.
Right.
Where Sue, what was her last name?
The girlfriend of Jack Jordan.
Right, yeah.
Oh, no, not Jack Jordan, because he's a district attorney.
Jim Jordan.
Jim. That's right.
Yeah, Sue Williams.
Sue Williams
is her name. She kind of breaks into Jim Jordan's apartment.
Right.
And starts
she's his girlfriend.
Snooping around.
And she thinks she finds what is the Green Lantern power battery.
Yeah.
Or she finds what she thinks is it.
Yeah.
And so the guys are out on the hunting trip, and Hal gets some poison ivy.
Yeah.
And so they go to the doctor, and the doctor treats Jim with the poison ivy too, but they both take off their fraternity rings.
Right.
Hal has disguised his Green Lantern ring to look like the fraternity ring.
Right.
So there's an accidental switch, and of course Jim gets the real power, the power ring, and Hal just has the frat ring.
Right. So Jim goes back to his apartment. Sue is there, like, "Ha! I've caught you. Here's your power battery."
Like, power battery? That's a headlamp from this like rare car that I found at a junk dealer.
So I have a quick question.
Okay.
And I might have thought about this a little later, but I want to talk about it now.
Okay.
So, whenever we see Green Lantern dealing with the power battery, it's always very secret.
Yeah.
He keeps it invisible, which we see later on in the story. These stories. And he's always pretty much alone, other than Pie-Face, when he does his oath.
Okay.
How do people know about the power battery? Unless he's just telling people about it.
Right. I don't think anyone in any story has known that the power battery is a thing.
Other than maybe Sinestro.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the reader knows, and so is there some untold story where the public knows that he charges up the ring every 24 hours?
Right. Well, later on we have another story where people realize he has to charge it up every 24 hours.
And is it one of those 0-hour stories? Because those take place not necessarily chronological.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
I think it is.
Then that could solve the problem that you're addressing.
Okay. I don't know if Sue, like, how does Sue Williams know about the power battery, and later on the oath, because on the next page here, she's confronted him. She points out the power battery, and he's like, "Oh, let me do the oath then." And he starts off saying the oath, and then he says, "Say, what comes next, Sue?" in the middle of it, and she finishes the oath for him.
Yeah, how does everybody know about the oath?
Yeah, and so my thought is, it's a solemn. Whenever we see Green Lantern doing it, the writers always put in, it's a very solemn moment
and almost
private.
sacred.
Yeah,
but yeah,
and so it's not something I think that Green Lantern would share with everybody.
Yeah, yeah, it's a plot hole that maybe will be addressed later, because because as we go by there, we have seen from earlier stories plot holes that were like explained in later stories.
Right.
Obviously, I'm sure that letters are getting written in, like, what about this? And Julie Schwartz, editor, is saying, let's address this in a story.
Right.
And I can only surmise that is what is occurring. Mm-hmm.
So moving on a little bit.
Okay.
He's doing the Lantern Oath, and he's playing it up. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, it's time for me to fly. And he kind of goes into and he nails his head on the ceiling because he's actually flying. Yeah,
Jim did not expect to be flying.
And he's kind of knocked out. And Sue, just kind of runs away.
Yeah. Then, bad guys show up to steal the lamp.
Right.
From the car thing, which Sue thought was a Green Lantern, the power battery.
Right. But, yeah. It's the Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a real story about a rare Mercedes-Benz,
Oh, okay.
and that's kind of fictionalized into this.
Right. Okay.
So,
one thing I wanted to mention also is it's pretty impressive. I guess it's impressive now that Jim was able to use the power ring.
right.
Because in the current incarnation of Green Lantern, Hal Jordan's willpower is beyond that of a normal man's.
But
like he has the focus of beyond that of a normal man, and so if someone were to just pick up the ring, they wouldn't really be able to use it.
you have to think, this is still fair. This is only, 12 issues into the Green Lantern series?
Yeah.
Or 15 really kind of showcase run.
Right.
But,
and they really haven't established a ton of ring lore yet. They haven't done all
and
that.
you have to think, decades later,
right,
which is probably at least a decade in his real-time life,
mm-hmm.
of course he's got concentration higher than anybody else.
Right, yeah.
He's a Green Lantern, and he's been a Green Lantern for a long time.
Yeah.
So,
still one of my favorite moments is when Batman is able to take it right off his finger.
in the New 52?
Yeah.
Let's not talk about that. I did remember reading a story where Batman took Kyle Rayner's ring,
mm-hmm.
but that's Kyle Rayner, and he was still relatively new.
Yeah.
But if at the end of pre-New 52 continuity,
mm-hmm.
there's no way in the world Batman would have been able to take Hal's ring.
Right.
I firmly believe that.
Okay.
So,
there is an issue in Daniel Neal and Neil Adams' run on Green Lantern Green Arrow,
which we'll talk about in a few months.
Right, where the Arrow is able to use as a single shot. He's able to fire a green arrow from the ring
because he picks up the ring, right?
Right. Yeah.
Well, if it's off Hal's finger, anybody can pick it up, and
right,
if you know kind of how it works.
Mm-hmm. But it takes all of his strength. It's one of my
because he's
favorite,
untrained on using the ring. So, but that's
one
interesting.
of my favorite things that's happened.
I forgot about that moment.
Yeah.
So anyway,
yeah. So these guys they come and steal the Mercedes-Benz lantern, and they see, oh, hey, we have this guy here. We should probably take him with us,
right?
So he doesn't, run his lips.
So Hal is like close by, I guess, and gets out of his civilian clothes and tries to spring into action as Green Lantern, and realizes his ring's not working.
Yeah, nothing happens.
Oh wait, it's the fraternity ring. Dang it! So he realizes the switch has happened,
mm-hmm.
but he's gonna just jump in the car and go after those guys,
right?
With no powers,
mm-hmm.
which is kind of cool.
Yeah. So there's this kind of heavy-set bad guy.
And so, the thugs bring the Jim Jordan to the villain's lair,
mm-hmm.
or house, or whatever, garage, whatever.
And the head guy gives this story of the Archduke's blue diamond that was stolen and then hidden in the Mercedes-Benz.
Yes, the car
mm-hmm.
as the getaway car, and so he's been hunting down the pieces of this rare car for years,
mm-hmm.
trying to see if that diamond was hidden in it,
right.
which is, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he's assembled the whole car, everything except the lantern that Jim Jordan has.
The lamp, yeah.
And he's about to off him, and Green Lantern barges in and it kind of startles the guys because they know Green Lantern. He's going to come and kick their butts.
One thing, the main bad guy says, "By Jove, it's Green Lantern." Who is Jove? I know that's an expression.
Right.
Who in the world is Jove?
I have no idea.
Who are they talking about when they say Great Scott?
Right.
Yeah.
Huh?
So, anyway. Old people.
Yeah. And so Lantern realizes Jim has his ring, and he decides, I'm going to power the ring on Jim's finger to make it look like I'm using the power ring from my hand.
Right.
And they both start kind of walloping the bad guys.
And then so they're beaten, and then Hal gets his ring back by, what does he do?
He causes a pretty big flash with the ring and is able to switch them really quickly.
Yeah.
It temporarily blinds
Jim.
And there was a special radiation on the ring
Right.
that he told him about, and he needed to clean it off. And
Right.
So he does a flash. He switches rings, and they get their rings back. And
Yeah. So Hal is able to take the bad guys to jail and explain in short order to like what's going on to the cops. And so they all go to jail, and then everything's cool, and Jim and Hal and Jack go to their fraternity reunion.
But before Jim goes to the reunion, Sue is back, and she's like, "I know you're him," and he's like, "Look, I can't do anything now." And, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, I know you're playing coy.
Yeah.
But
I think this. She seemed really crazy in her first appearance because she jumped off a building to prove that he was Green Lantern.
Yeah.
But now I'm kind of warming to this dynamic. Probably because I'm kind of fond of like the Lois or Lana always trying to find Superman.
Yeah.
Identity. So yeah.
So next issue.
Yes, we have Green Lantern number 15, and the is it the lead or the only story? No, the lead story is Peril of the Yellow World, and it's written by John Broome, penciled by Gil Kane, and inked by Joe Giello. And yes, it's a Sinestro story. Yay!
Yeah, it is.
So we start off with Hal and Carol just driving through the country.
Oh yeah.
And Hal gets hit in the face with a newspaper while they're driving, and they almost have a wreck.
Yeah.
And, Hal was like, oh man, I might have had to almost turn into Green Lantern to save us. Remember that earlier story where Carol had a dream of that happened? Like it was part of her weird dream? Crazy Carol. She's oh yeah.
So at dinner, they've gone to dinner, and Hal is convinced he's jinxed because all these terrible things keep happening.
Right.
He's tripped off the wing of his airplane.
He almost got burned by a starting jet.
Yeah. He's going down the stairs and he kind of swings around
and like the knob on the post comes right off in his hand.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And he's decided, you know what, I got to figure this out, and so he's gonna rush out on Carol again.
Right.
Giving her an excuse like, oh, I got this big flight coming.
Right.
I gotta be ready for it.
Yeah, and she's like frustrated. She's like, well, he's being a good employee.
Right. Yeah.
So.
And really, in the first part of this story, nothing happens.
Right.
They almost have an accident. He goes on a date with Carol.
Yeah. And
then kind of takes her home.
Yeah, something is wrong. He wants to go check on Sinestro.
Yeah.
And so he gears up as Green Lantern, charges up the ring, goes off into space to where Sinestro was imprisoned, and finds Sinestro is gone.
Yeah. So I guess something big does happen, but it's not...
Right.
It doesn't have to do anything.
Right.
Other than go and find Sinestro. 2
issues previously in The Strange Trial of Green Lantern, the end, if you recall, Sinestro was imprisoned and his own mind control device was used to keep him from trying to escape or whatever.
Yeah.
Little do we know Sinestro escaped because he had programmed it to affect anyone but him.
Exactly.
So he was faking it and he got away, and so he went back to Quard, and he's in a strange contest on Quard.
Right.
He's gonna be like awarded like the most evil citizen. He's in a race with some other guys.
Yeah.
His lead contender is a guy named Jippo Bax.
Yeah.
And Sinestro has kind of a campaign manager. What is his name?
The campaign manager?
Yeah.
I don't know. Did we learn his name?
I thought we did, but anyway, the funny thing about the campaign manager is he looks like Doiby Dickles, Alan Scott's Golden Age sidekick, the cabbie. He's evil Doiby Dickles. That's who this guy looks like to me.
Yeah, I don't see his name here anywhere.
That's okay. He's not that important at all.
And so Green Lantern is racing towards Quard, and as he's on his way there, he passes Sinestro
in outer space.
Yeah, who has a plan in how he's gonna become the most evil citizen
of Quard.
Yeah.
So here's his plan. He's gonna lead Green Lantern to this planet where everything is yellow.
Right, Grix, I think.
Yeah. and trap him there.
Yeah.
Because he can't move. He can't use his ring, really, on this planet. Because everything, including the air, which we've seen before, is yellow.
Right.
And the beings. And Sinestro has manipulated mentally with his ring the citizens, the kind of Grix. Is it Grix?
Yeah.
Yeah. Into basically hating Green Lantern and wanting to destroy him as an enemy. So he's screwed.
Yeah.
Hal's trapped on this planet, and it's a totally hostile world.
He's fighting them off, and he kind of gets away.
He can only use it's regular fisticuffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so to prove that he is the most evil citizen of Quard, Sinestro sets up a machine that can film...
Can look in on what's going on Grix.
Right.
And that proves to be his undoing. Because Hal finds there's a little bit of purple light or something that thing emanates. And it gives Hal enough room to work with to use his ring.
Absolutely.
That little bit of purple light allows him to escape and go right back to Quard and follow that energy trail back to Quard and fight Sinestro.
And so they have a pretty cool fight.
Yeah.
In which Green Lantern wins.
Yeah.
And he takes out a bunch of Quardians, and he knocks out Sinestro, and he takes him back to the prison planet.
And he's readjusted the mind control machine so that it will work on Sinestro.
Right.
And so now he should be trapped for good.
He should be.
And then Hal goes back to Earth and has a date with Carol.
Yeah.
Yay!
Who is upset because he's a good employee.
Yeah. But he's finally making progress with Carol.
Yep.
So some advancement in that subplot.
Great.
So I like that. That's a good Sinestro story.
Yeah, totally.
Let's see. So the backup is called 0 Hour in Rocket City, and so it's another one of these 0 hour stories where it's not like this takes place at some time previous that's unspecified. These are great stories to kind of like fill in those logic holes.
Right.
In some of the lead stories. And this one, let's see, 0 Hour in Rocket City. It was written by John Broome, penciled by Gil Kane, inked by Joe Giella. So
cool.
You know, in the previous story, the aliens on the Yellow World,
on
Grix, Mohawks.
Yeah.
Gil Kane draws a lot of Mohawks. Jeff and I read an issue of Warlock this week. He fought this guy Apollo, Mohawk. So
maybe it's a hairstyle he always kind of wanted, but was too, white.
But it's like way before punk rock. It's like, who had Mohawks? Native Americans.
Yeah.
One tribe of Native Americans. But right?
Yeah, I mean it's a fairly popular tribe, and so maybe the Grixians,
whatever.
Maybe they were meant to look primal.
Sure.
And so I
can dig that. But I mean, Gil Kane does lots of monsters with Mohawks. It's like a thing for him. So anyway, but 0 Hour in Rocket City.
Yeah. So it's another one of
Pie Face's
case files.
Yeah.
On Green Lantern.
And it's about like he's got like almost out of lantern juice.
Right.
Ring juice, ring power.
And so Lantern, or Hal, is kind of looking at the clock, and he's like, well, it's 2 o'clock. I need to take these special parts from Ferris Air to, I think,
Cape Canaveral.
Yeah.
Cool. This is great, because Hal's talking to like the authorities there, or his contact there, and he says, yeah, basically the whole town is really all about the launching the rockets, and basically everybody stops to check out the launch when it happens. Right. And so they've had criminals who take advantage of that. Whenever there's a launch, they go and rob places because it's practically deserted because everybody's watching the launch.
Yeah. So Hal takes off, and he's going to stay kind of as long as he can in the 24 hours that he's given.
Yeah.
To kind of protect the town and make sure nothing bad happens. Well, it's running pretty close to 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
And he is, running out of juice in his power ring.
Lantern juice.
And he realizes, the criminals are here.
Yeah.
I've got to do something. Kind of on instinct, he rushes in.
Yeah.
And he punches a couple guys, and he decides, I gotta use my ring a little bit. The last bit of juice I have.
Right.
And he kind of ties them up and gets them into jail, and he's very confused because it's time he ran out of juice on his ring. And so he gets back to Ferris Air.
He realized his clock at the hangar had stopped. Mm-hmm. And so he had charged it up prematurely?
Right, so it was actually 3 o'clock when he left.
Right.
Instead of 2 o'clock, which he set his personal watch to 2 o'clock, 24 hours. And so it gave him an extra hour of juice that he didn't realize he had.
Yeah, so he was good to go.
Right.
But he was worried that he was going to run out of juice while he had to fight the Rocket City robbers or whatever they were.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So now we have the introduction to an important story element and character. Mm-hmm. In Green Lantern number 16, we have The Secret Life of Star Sapphire.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So just when you thought Carol wasn't any crazier, here's where it really starts to get to the craziness.
Right.
So Carol Ferris is thinking about Hal and
totally distracted while she's flying a plane.
Yeah.
Over some Gila monsters.
That's not a Gila monster, it's just a lizard. But anyway, she's flying, and then she's captured by the Zamorons.
Yeah. Who seem kind of like a Amazonian.
That's exactly
race,
what they are, yeah. But they're from another planet.
But they can't call them that because Wonder Woman and her whole thing.
Right. Yeah. I think down the line the Zamorons team up with the Guardians.
Oh.
Maybe? Or I could be totally wrong.
I guess if they're,
end up being enemies with Green Lantern.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But let's talk about this story.
Yeah, so she's kind of crash landing, and the Zamorons gather her up and say, "Look, our queen died. We need a new queen, and you look it."
And because you look just like her, and that's exactly what we need.
Right.
Which is weird.
So the Zamorons are immortal beings.
Yes, but their queens are immortal. They are mortal.
Yes.
And the Zamorons are a race of all females, no males.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. And so they're explaining all this to Carol, and she's like, I can't be your queen. I live here.
And I'm in love with somebody from here.
Right.
It's Green Lantern, yo.
Yeah. And they're like, look, you're going to be way more powerful than that silly male. Here's a taste of it.
So they give her the costume and the power of the Star Sapphire, which is essentially like Green Lantern powers.
Right.
Only it's pink.
Right. And they say, here's your mission. You have to go steal this thing. And you're going to get Green Lantern to follow you, and you're going to fight him.
And you're going to beat him.
You're going to see how weak he is.
And then you're going to not want to be with him.
Right.
Weird plan. And so she fakes all these crimes. She doesn't actually steal anything.
Right. The Zamorons, plant all this stuff.
And then she breaks into these places, but she's not really stealing anything.
Right.
So of course, Hal encounters her, and they have battles.
Yeah, and she just knocks him out.
Hal gets hit in the back of the head again.
Oh, right, yeah.
As he tends to.
With a repelling ray, and so he gets hit with a repelling ray, smacks his head on a
ledge, yeah,
and falls to his earth. Right before he hits the ground, though, he kind of comes to and puts a net so he's caught.
Yeah. So yay.
Safe.
And then he thinks, I gotta track down this crazy chick.
Yeah. She looks really familiar to me.
But he can't place it. Yeah.
He's in love with this woman, but can't place it.
He doesn't... Not in love with Star Sapphire, but he's in love with Carol.
Yeah.
Yeah, weird.
And so they go back and... or she goes back to the Zamorons, and she's still like, look, this power is cool, I did this thing for you, I still don't want to hurt him, I love him. So
they send her out again to steal some other thing that she's not actually stealing.
Right.
And Green Lantern, tracks her down, and they fight again.
Yeah, they puts her in a cage, and she teleports out.
Yeah.
And so they're, fighting ring to ring, or ring to hand, power.
Power to power.
Yeah, power to power, and the repelling ray kind of starts breaking through again, and so he puts up a shield.
Yeah.
And the Zamorons send the power of mind over matter.
Yeah.
And they kind of flood Carol with this. And she's able to put up her own shield.
Yeah.
But Green Lantern crushes it with his power ring.
And so they teleport her away.
No.
Right?
Not yet. He puts
okay.
her into a force field box.
Right.
And they see, she's like, no, it's wonderful, you saved me. I'm defeated. I don't have to kill you, you know.
Right.
And that's when they kind of zap her away.
Right. And so Green Lantern's like, I wonder who she is.
Yeah.
And then the Zamorons remove the memory of being Star Sapphire from Carol's brain.
Right.
Or they suppress it or something.
Yeah.
And then she goes back to being Carol, but they're not going to stop bothering her.
Right.
They're going to be back.
Yeah. And Green Lantern finds the Star Sapphire stone at her feet.
Yeah, and it's like, huh?
Why is this here?
Are you that stupid?
They both are kind of stupid.
I mean, like, I've said this, like, Hal is, like, kind of a dumbass sometimes. Like, the obvious stuff. Like, what?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, we're laying the groundwork for later revelations and more plots and more stories.
And the idea of a new lasting character is awesome.
I mean, she's really his number 2 villain, and
Right.
she's the woman he loves.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I think I mentioned 2 things to mention about Star Sapphire and Carol. There's a Golden Age Star Sapphire that fought the original Flash, Jay Garrick, had a couple of adventures, and she was selected to be the Zamorons' queen, but exiled to the 7th dimension.
Right.
And then she came from there and fought.
Right, and that was a retcon, right?
Well, that explanation, because the Golden Age one, she said she was a queen from the 7th dimension.
Right.
And anyway, she wanted to destroy all plant life on Earth, and that would kill all men and suffocate the Earth. And anyway, she fought the Golden Age Flash a couple times, and had like one modern appearance where that retcon happened.
Right. Okay.
So,
which he won because there's still plants on Earth.
Right. Good. Whew, whew. I don't know if like every time it was her trying to destroy plant life, but I know that was like one time.
Yeah.
I have read one of those Golden Age Flash stories with her.
Cool.
I don't remember which one. So, but the other thing to note about Carol and the Star Sapphire, she has this kind of like split personality with Star Sapphire. Doesn't know she's Star Sapphire, but becomes Star Sapphire.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that messes with her mind. There is created a third personality, the Predator, who is a male supervillain who splits off from her body entirely and does actions independently of Carol. But the male, the Predator, is in love with Carol and wants to be with her romantically and stuff. And he is a weird Green Lantern villain.
Yeah.
I can't remember when he's introduced. Maybe we'll see him in the course of these volumes, or maybe not. But yeah, creepy. I'm like, I need to wash now. We're just thinking about that guy. But anyway, there's that.
Pretty cool backup story in this one.
Yes, and this answers a very important question. And I'll give you the title of the story first. It's called Earth's First Green Lantern. And this was written by Gardner Fox, creator of the Golden Age Green Lantern, or co-creator, I think. Penciled by Gil Kane and inked by Joe Giella. Now, one wonders, okay, obviously this story is about Abin Sur. One wonders, if you can fly through space with the Lantern Ring, why did Abin Sur crash in a spaceship?
Right. And you know what? Hal Jordan's going to tell us.
Yes.
By telling Pieface.
Yes, and through telling Pieface, he's telling us.
Right.
So we kind of get a recap of Hal stumbling upon Abin Sur, or he was summoned by Abin Sur. But okay, and then hiding his body in kind of a thing under a big mountain.
Right.
And learning what was up with basically learning about Abin Sur's final mission.
Right, yeah.
And so,
And so he finds out because he actually mentions the story that Pieface wrote down that he calls The Prisoner of the Power Ring.
Yes.
And he's able to look back in the minds of people and kind of find their history because of the ring.
Yeah.
And so he does it. He asks the ring, "Hey, tell me what you were doing with Abin Sur and why he was in, a spaceship." Of all things,
Man, the ring must have like at least a terabyte of information.
Right? Yeah.
No, that's a lot of data, but yeah.
So it gives a story of Abin Sur coming across this civilization that is kind of stuck in the medieval stage.
Right, and they were kept in there because the I factor had limited their intelligence.
The I factor, I thought, had stolen their intelligence. It sapped it off, and so they weren't able to evolve.
No, the I factor is what allows you to evolve, and their I factor had been removed or suppressed by this other alien force.
Right, and so Abin Sur
by the Larifars.
Larifars, yeah. Abin Sur finds out who it was, where they are, and he goes after them. And
the Larifars, I think they are energy beings.
Yeah,
they don't have corporeal bodies,
which was really cool to me.
Yeah,
because whenever we see aliens in this, typically they're still humanoid shaped.
Somewhat, yeah.
They have arms and 2 legs, and it's never anything really crazy. But here, they look like stars almost.
Yeah. I feel like the Larifars must have later been retconned into they are the parallax entity, or they have some connection with it.
Oh, really?
Think about it.
I mean, he was able...
Decades later. Because, remember, it was retconned as the fight with Parallax was the end of Abin Sur's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. So, they send their suppression of
So maybe they were pawns of the Parallax entity.
Right, yeah.
Or something like that. Okay, so...
and so... they use a telekinesis to launch rocks at Abin Sur. He takes a giant sword, breaks him away. That angers them, and they have no I factor of their own, so they have to steal it.
Oh,
that's what it is.
That's why. Okay.
And so they all get together and they start shooting their suppression stuff or their sapping stuff at Abin Sur, and he reflects it back at them with a mirror.
Cool.
And they get I don't know if you can knock out an energy beam, but they're distracted long enough for him to capture them in his power ring.
Right.
And kind of set them in orbit around a star.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one left.
Right.
Kind of hidden away, waiting for them.
Balzona.
Yeah.
He's the last one.
Yeah, and so Balzona... I'm sorry, I can't remember.
Okay. Dead air.
Yeah, sorry. There's a volcano, and
Abin Sur scoops up some lava, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Hits some stuff with a big hammer.
Yeah,
it's great.
Then he goes to sleep, and Balzona shows up and starts kind of sapping his energy.
His I factor.
Yeah. And this wakes up Abin Sur, and so he goes to charge his lantern, his power ring.
Yeah.
And he kind of has control of himself, but it's still Balzona is controlling him a little.
Yeah, it's definitely affecting him.
Yeah. And so, like Hal Jordan, he keeps his power battery invisible.
Mm.
And so Abin Sur picks it up, and Balzona has convinced him to take him back to where the other, what are they called?
Oh, whatever those beings were?
Yeah.
I already forgot. The Larifars.
The Larifars. To free them, and so they can take him out and destroy him. And by the time they would get there, his power ring would be depleted.
Yeah.
And so he sneaks his power battery on board.
Onto the spaceship, right.
The spaceship.
And that's why he had it. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And so they beat him, I guess. He was blinded by yellow light, and then he crashed on Earth.
Right.
So the yellow light, we could say, is that the Larifars were manipulated or were somehow connected to the Parallax entity.
Yeah.
And that, yeah. Okay.
So I thought the yellow light was kind of surrounding Earth.
Yeah.
And because Hal mentions that there's like a specific place he leaves from whenever he leaves Earth, because there's like a gap in the yellow radiation.
Right.
And so I thought
that's interesting, because the yellow rays of the sun.
Right. Power Superman. Right.
And you would think that because yellow anything affects Green Lantern negatively, I wonder if that's why the Guardians had kind of maybe stayed away from Earth so much.
Huh?
And the Lantern, they thought Earth was a backward world, but really it was, a yellow sun. Well,
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yellow solar radiation it unknowingly weakens the lanterns on there. They're not as awesome, say, on Earth as they are in outer space. Maybe.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
but, I mean, it's a cool story of how Ivan sort of crash-landed into Earth.
And now we know why he was in a spaceship.
Right, yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
One more issue to round out this volume of Showcase.
Yeah.
And also, this episode.
Yeah.
Green Lantern number 17. Mm-hmm. And it's a book-length story, an issue-length, I should say. And it's called The Spy Eye That Doomed Green Lantern. And Gardner Fox wrote this as well. Mm-hmm. Gil Kane did the pencils, and Joe Giella inked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did do that.
At first I was kind of like, man, the whole story's going to be about spies. But it's kind of cool. You got to do some Cold War stuff every once in a while.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed is, just here and there in some of these panels, I really noticed some pencil work that really reminds me of Mike Sikowski, who did every Silver Age Justice League story.
Oh, wow.
And it's odd that this is a spy story, and he also did over at Dell the Man from U.N.C.L.E. comics.
I don't know.
I've read some of those, and I was like, man, that looks kind of like Joe Giella, or Mike Sikowski work, just a little bit. And it's not constant, but yeah, I don't know.
Right. So, jumping into the story, there's a new rocket being tested.
rocket. So
the X-50 rocket.
Yeah.
And Hal Jordan is going to be piloting it.
Of course, because he's the grooviest test pilot around, yo.
Absolutely.
So
and so some spies from another.
They're commies, but they don't say they're Soviet, but they say they're our mother nation or mother country.
Right. Yeah.
They're commies.
They're spying on Hal Jordan because they know that he'll be piloting it, and he'll have special information on how they can kind of steal the plans.
Right.
For their own X-50 rocket.
Word.
And so they've come up with this special camera that will light up Hal Jordan with a special radiation.
Yeah.
So that they can film him wherever he goes.
Right. But then they see Hal doing something weird.
Yeah.
He's in his regular clothes, charging up his lantern ring.
Right.
And the lamp the power battery is invisible.
Mm-hmm. And so he does the oath.
And they're like, what's that? What's he doing?
Yeah. And so he switches clothes, hops into his plane, and he doesn't hop in. They're checking out the plane, making sure everything's ready for his flight and all that. So he goes into like this special briefing room, and they have the plans, and the spies are getting excited because they finally get to look at the plans, because whatever Hal sees, they're going to be able to see as well. And he's rolling out the general or whatever is kind of rolling out the plans, and Hal's like, no, I know these like the back of my hand.
My ring-slinging hand.
Yeah, I don't need to see him, which upsets the
The commies.
Yeah.
The commie spies.
And just in case, he uses his power ring to kind of light up the plans.
Yeah.
In light that no one else can see, but gives off enough radiation to where he'll be able to find them if they're ever stolen.
Right, but they don't know about that.
Right. And so, just as the commies thought they had all was lost, a last-minute vault opening occurs, and they're able to look at the combination to the vault.
Right.
But they didn't see that Hal had lit up these plans.
So they think, cool, we know the combination to the vault now, and we're going to go and steal those plans when nobody's looking.
Right. So, while on a date with Carol Ferris...
His ring starts to glow, meaning that someone's stealing the plans.
Right. So he cuts his date short.
She gets PO'd.
Yeah.
He leaves as Green Lantern and tracks down the commies and
The giant hand pointing to where
I love
the
it.
plans are.
So they start shooting at Green Lantern with a machine gun, and then he catches their bullets and turns them into big, spikes in the road and stops their car.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. And that's how the first part of the story ends.
Right.
But picking right up.
Yeah.
The big splash panel. The two bad guys are thrown from their car.
Yeah.
And Green Lantern has to make sure the car, one, doesn't crush them.
Yeah.
And two, has to catch them before they die and retrieve the plans.
Right.
So he carts them off to jail.
He takes them in a giant net.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
I don't know if he actually goes to jail. He takes them before the Oh, no, it's jail. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, these guys are commie spies. Okay.
And he makes them kneel in front of him, and he shoots them in the back of the head with his power ring. And so he's able to look at their plans like he did with himself. And the power
right, so he
ring
can see everything that they saw. So they saw him charging up the ring, and what, huh?
Yeah. And so he figures out where they are, and he flies to the penthouse, and does something a little weird.
Oh, he uses a giant buzzsaw to cut off the top of the building and
Right.
carry it away with a giant eagle.
Yeah.
It's super
strange.
weird.
Yeah.
But
when he finally gets to a place where he can investigate the penthouse, it's totally empty. And so
he couldn't have
casually
just flown in.
Right. He casually takes it back and puts it back in place.
Right.
And
then he goes into outer space and lays down in a bed that he makes and sleeps.
He realizes, well, they won't be able to catch me if they can't see me.
So he goes in space.
And so he goes out in space and he sleeps in a bed he makes. It's so
floating.
crazy.
It's super weird.
Yeah.
But but anyway, then he returns the X-50 plans to the Air Force.
Uh-huh.
And then the commies realize that Hal Jordan is Green Lantern.
Right. Yeah, because they're seeing everything he's seeing.
Yeah.
And he's dressed as Green Lantern.
They put two and two together.
Right. And so they decide they're going to try to hold him hostage, because think of the power they would have.
Because they know his secret identity.
That and, against their enemies.
Yeah.
And so it shows it's a few different things, like missiles being blown out of the sky, picking up a submarine, coating an entire army in green light and trapping
because their plan is to steal the power of Green Lantern,
right?
Thinking that they actually could.
Yeah.
So.
Thus ends part 2.
Yes.
And we enter part 3. Hal Jordan has gotten into his X-50 jet rocket thing.
Yeah, that's not Hal's jet. It belongs to the United States Air Force. Yeah. But, yeah.
And he's launched into space to do an orbit. And so the commies take this opportunity to say, you know what? He's going to be up there for more than 24 hours. And we know that his ring...
Because they had watched him charge it up, they realized he had to charge it every 24 hours. Okay.
Right. And so...
when he gets back...
Oh, right. He gets back.
And then he's captured by commies.
Mm-hmm. They say, hey, come with us. You have to go to the hospital real quick. We just want to check you out. And instead, they pull guns on him.
And they realize...
take him to a cabin.
And we know you're Green Lantern.
Right.
And he's like, huh? Well, how could I be Green Lantern? And that's where it starts to get a little complicated.
Yeah. So, he says, I'm not Green Lantern, because Green Lantern's right there.
Right?
And so he makes a duplicate of himself.
Right.
Which terrifies the commies.
Right.
And one drops a smoke capsule.
Right.
And Hal makes a fan, blows it away, and then puts them onto a
treadmill. And wears them out.
Right, yeah.
And then Green Lantern flies off and takes him to jail, leaving Hal behind.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, he's not Hal Jordan after all. And then we're like, huh, how did that happen? He's explaining to Pi. Mm-hmm. Because Pi says that, wait, I thought you couldn't create duplicates of yourself on Earth.
On Earth, yeah.
Yeah. So what he did was, he had actually made Pie-Face into Green Lantern, which he had done before in that first story that we had Hector Hammond. Uh-huh. Remember where Hector Hammond had captured Pie-Face as Green Lantern and turned him into an ape? Remember?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we know that he had run out of time on his power ring. Right. But he had snuck out of the rocket and flew back to Earth.
Yeah.
Charged up his ring.
And then zoomed on back up.
And before he was invisible. So before he left, he made Pie-Face into a duplicate of Green Lantern.
I mean, he turned him into a bird that other time.
Right. Yeah.
That was so weird.
And so, yeah, it's pretty crazy. But
the moral of the story is commies suck.
Yeah.
And America wins.
And that Pie-Face is, a pretty compliant friend.
Yeah, hey, let me just turn you into,
Right.
And he's married. Where's Turga? Wondering, hey, where's my husband? Oh, he's off just being Green Lantern against his will, really.
Yeah.
Because he didn't ask Pie-Face.
No,
he was not in on the plan.
Poor Pie-Face. He's going to have to deal with a psychologist soon.
Maybe. Of course, it's never addressed, I don't think.
I got turned into a bird. I got turned into another man. I got turned into an ape.
He's got some Jimmy Olsen kind of problems. I mean, think about that. You think of all the crazy transformations Jimmy Olsen has gone under.
Right.
There's so many things that DC does, in a number of their books and Silver Age. It's not that kind of thing goes on in this series. It goes on in other ones too.
Right.
Pie-Face has transformations. Jimmy Olsen has transformations. DC was crazy about imps also.
Right.
Obviously, we know Superman battles Mr. Mxyzptlk. Batman has Batmite to deal with.
Right.
Aquaman has an imp.
Ugh.
I know.
Who reads Aquaman?
I do. And Jordan. It's not my favorite stuff, but Aquaman has this imp. Quisp is a water sprite. And then Green Lantern has an imp also. Merwidden. Who we will encounter in Showcase Presents Green Lantern Volume 2.
Cool.
But yeah, what's up with the imps, DC?
We want an answer right now.
But yeah, there's a lot of imps.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, that's that. Next week we're going to talk about another series entirely before starting Green Lantern Volume 2. Ooh, what's the next series we're going to talk about? Probably something that's a big deal also on television these days.
Yeah.
What could it be?
Yeah. It'll be exciting. I'm excited for the next show.
Yay.
Yeah.
Bye.